Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode number 32, 3-2 of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. This show was created as a safe space where cancer survivors and cancer supporters come together to share their stories and connect, as well as find resources that provide healing, hope, and resilience. My name is Tim Sohn. I am a 15-year cancer survivor, host of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, and a live streaming producer and coach for impact-focused nonprofits, businesses, and entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us. Please let us know where you are tuning in from around the world. We want this to be a conversation. Also, we encourage you to connect with each other in the chat. But before I introduce our amazing guest tonight, I need to introduce you to somebody else first. Tonight, I will be joined by the one and only Nancy Barrows as my guest co-host. I'm sure many of you know her, but I'm sure some of you don't as well. Known as the Queen of Engagement and named as the top 50 most impactful people of LinkedIn, Nancy Barrows is keynote speaker and coach who helps others understand the value and power of engagement and personal content on social media. Through her program, The Chick with the Tool Belt, Nancy helps others meet their highest personal and business potential. She is live every Wednesday and Saturday with Brian Schulman for their global award-winning shows What's Good Wednesday and Shout Out Saturday. Nancy has thrived through adversity and employs her experience to help others find their voice. By telling her story and creating the Radiating Real movement, she is making a positive impact and encouraging others to do the same. Nancy is also one of the people who inspired me to share my cancer story, which happened just about a year ago. So welcome to the show, Nancy Barrows.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I owe you a psh, because I think you said around the world somewhere in there.
Yes.
Thank you for sorry.
No, after you.
No, I say thank you for having me and thank you to your community for welcoming me so kindly.
Yes, of course. And you show up often in the comments of the shows. So thank you for showing up as a community member. And now today as guest co-host. And Nancy Barrows, who do we have for our guest this week?
Well, I'm honored to introduce to you our guest tonight. Before you leave the show tonight, you are going to feel inspired to make a difference. Our guest, Erica Campbell, has multiple connections to cancer. She worked at a camp with children who had cancer for 20 years. She's a breast cancer survivor herself. Her mom passed away from metastatic breast cancer, and now she has her dream job. She is the executive director of the Pinky Swear Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to help kids with cancer and their families with financial and emotional support. Welcome to the show, Erica. Thank you so much for coming on the show to share your story and your perspectives.
Thank you so much, Nancy and Tim. And now I get to be in the hot seat myself. I was the guest co-host for the last 2 weeks, and so now I get to see the other side.
Yes, you do get to see the other side. And we also should tell everyone that, and I did announce this the other day on social media, but Erica is going to be the official co-host of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer starting in August. So congratulations, Erica. I'm so excited to have you as co-host starting in August officially.
I am thrilled.
Congratulations. What a wonderful fit, you guys.
Yes. I'm so excited. So before we start our conversation, Erica, I want to go over to the comments and see who's tuning in and thank people for showing up. The comments are on fire already. There are so many people here. Patty Hone is here. She's saying, looking forward to this show. Sharing is caring. And Patty Hone has a breast cancer blog, and she's a previous guest on the show. So definitely check out her blog, Erica.
100%. I look forward to that.
Yes, definitely. Susanna Webb is here, a previous guest on the show.
Hi, Susanna.
Yes. Jeffrey Edwards is in the house. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeff.
Terry Tomoff is here.
Oh,
Right.
Terry, I love you. How? It's a special bond between Terry and I. Terry is a fierce mama and a wonderful friend. Terry, great to see you.
That's awesome. And I think that's how, was it through them that we got connected, Erica?
Yes. Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. Love the connection. Catherine Parker is here. Welcome, Catherine. So many of you are here. We love you all. Charlene Brown is in the house. Welcome, Charlene. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know what your connection to cancer is. Let us know if you're a cancer survivor. Let us know if maybe there's somebody in your family who has passed from cancer, or if there's some other connection. We would love to know what the connection is so we can all show up to support you. Joanne is here from Canada. Welcome, Joanne. Brian is here from the New Jersey, Philadelphia metro area. You must not be too far from me, Brian. Let's have coffee.
Coffee.
Coffee. Yes, coffee. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being here. As we go through the conversation, let us know what questions that you have for Erica. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any questions that you have as we start the conversation. Are you ready to get started with the conversation, Erica?
You bet.
All right. So, Erica, your first connection to cancer was that you were a summer camp counselor at a camp where children had cancer. What inspired you to volunteer there, and what was your experience like there?
Wow. This is a powerful question. It's actually how I know Terry Tomoff.
Wow.
When I graduated college, I started off as an auditor. Now, I know y'all don't know me very well yet, but this was like round peg, or like square peg, round hole. I was miserable. I thought that was my dream job, to be an accountant, and I would come home every night and cry. So apologies to any accountants in the house. So one night, my mom called me and she said, "I love you, honey, but you have got to get yourself out of this situation. Instead of crying every night, focus outwards and volunteer." So I tried on a few things, right? I did Habitat for Humanity. I cleaned up a river, and nothing really seemed to stick. And then one day I had a particularly horrible day at work, and I said, "Okay, all right, guys, I'm going to go have lunch by myself," in that moment of just sheer weakness. And this is before cell phones, so I looked a little awkward by myself, and I grabbed a newspaper. In the newspaper, I read this beautiful story about a young woman who was 16 years old and was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And it was a 5-part series in the Washington Post, and this series was all about her summer camp experiences. And at the bottom, it said, "If you're interested in volunteering for this organization, call this number." And I swear to you, Tim, it was like the heavens opened up. I was sitting next to a window. The sunlight came on, like shone on the newspaper, and I just got goosebumps all over my body. And I knew this is what I had to do. So I called the number and I signed up. And like 3 weeks later, I was sitting in an orientation session, and it began this beautiful journey of being a summer camp counselor, being like a mom to children with cancer. I would take a week off of work. I would have 4 girls in my room typically, and I would experience what it was like to be their sole caregiver, right? I got woken up in the middle of the night. I, heard all the things about their treatment, but all the things about life, boys, or, just wanting to try out new things like crafts or dance. And I'll be honest, that experience was life-changing, because I don't know if you've ever been around a child with cancer. They're so wise beyond their years. And, it's a side effect of cancer. It is forcing them to grow up. And they just have this amazing perspective. And that's what inspired me year on year to come back and to give more, because the more I gave, the more I got. And it was just an incredible experience. I did it for 20 years, like up until COVID. That's what, the childhood cancer community is struggling in the camping area, because there's a lot of germs out there. But yeah, it was an inspiring journey, and it's led to so many beautiful things.
And Bill said he never heard the story about how you discovered Special Love.
Yeah, that's it. I also call that story, Bill, the turkey sandwich turned around the world, because I'll never forget the turkey sandwich I was eating. I'll never forget the newspaper. It was a really beautiful moment.
I love that the universe saw you and delivered, right? You were brave. You showed the universe you were ready. You were brave, and this amazing thing that you couldn't even know how amazing was showed up in your life.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah. I mean, I didn't know I was on the precipice of a life-changing event. And if you ever have that urge and you're like, there's a little voice in your head that says, I think I should do that. I think I should call. Do it. Do it. Just do it.
And Erica, you said that when you saw the executive director there, that you wanted to be an executive director one day, right?
Yes. That's exactly what happened. So I told you, I signed up to volunteer, and I sat in the audience, and, remembering this was like a really difficult time where I hated my career and my job. And I sat in the audience and like totally enamored with what they were saying about the experience and how we were going to help kids. But I also looked at the executive director, and I was like, oh my God, I want that guy's job.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how that would ever happen for me. It was so far from what I was doing, right? He was far more seasoned, far more experienced. I was simply an accountant right out of college. But that became this like North Star for me. And I would take any experience to learn about being an executive director. I eventually joined the board of directors of this nonprofit. It's called Special Love Inc. And I highly encourage, I love them. And so, I really always was making choices that would, like, in the back of my mind, like, maybe this dream will come true. And to be honest, it's how I ended up at Pinky Swear today. I didn't go straight from that 22-year-old accountant to where I am today. There was a long, winding journey. I had a really beautiful long career. I left accounting. I moved into human resources and change management, just doing things for some really big companies and some really exciting things. But there was always something more that I wanted, right? So all this time, I was still taking off that week of work, whatever job I had, whatever career I had, taking off to be a summer camp counselor. For a week, I would do weekends as well. And then after about 18 years, my husband and I moved to Minneapolis. So I was living in Virginia. That's where the camp was located. And when you run a summer camp, you can't really run that remotely, even though it's COVID. And so when we moved to Minneapolis, I'll be honest, I thought, well, my dream's over. I'll never be the executive director of a summer camp. But when I got here, I continued my job, and I just had this nagging feeling that there was something more in life out there for me. And we'll talk about this later, but, I had lost my mom to cancer. And so that changes a person. And so work was really important to me, but I knew that I needed a change. So I'd quit my job. Now, keep in mind, I'd had a job since I was 13 years old. I'm like a workaholic. And so the day after I quit my job, I'd given 3 months notice. I was like, holy crap, what have I done? And so I started networking everywhere because I had quit with no job. And I didn't know anybody here in town. I was new to Minneapolis. So I do what any good, professional woman does. I went to every networking event in town. Like, you name it, I was there, right? Like the embarrassing person that, I'd start to see the same people there. And I think about after like 25 or 26 of these in a 30-day period, I'd driven across town and I sat in the parking lot and I had my head in my hands. I was like, what am I doing? So I took a deep breath, walked into the networking event, and immediately approached by this lovely woman. And she said, hi, what are you here for? And what kind of career are you looking for? I said, well, my name's Erica, and I'd love a new job in human resources or change management. And then it just started to boil inside me, right? Like just this shakiness and this voice again, and I couldn't suppress it. And so finally I was like, but actually what I really want is I want to be the executive director of a nonprofit helping kids with cancer. And like, I totally blurted this out without anything premeditated. And I know the woman looked at me and she was like, okay, like takes my business card, shakes my hand, and then I go off and like, get the free cheap wine and cheese, and I make small talk. And I go home dejected again. Well, 2 weeks later, this woman emails me and she said, I remember you. And I saw this job at Pinky Swear Foundation, and I think that's something you would enjoy.
Wow.
But it's like the second turkey sandwich moment, right? Like the sun shone, the goosebumps, and I was like, my dream is alive. And I went after the job at Pinky Swear as if my life depended on it. And, I had no experience in nonprofit. I had, like no credibility, but man, did I once again use my networking skills, learned about the organization, and all of those things that I had done over the years, right? My years on the board service, my years understanding what children with cancer and their families do, my mom's personal history, it truly led. And obviously I convinced the board to give me the job, and here I am. And it does remain my dream job. Like if anybody wants to learn more about Pinky Swear Foundation, oh my God, I love it. It's direct service to families, and it is soul-filling work for me. So thank you for asking about that. It's just a journey, and it's not over.
It's amazing. It really is a story that gives me chills. So you have been, working with kids with cancer at the summer camp, and, your mom is diagnosed with breast cancer a few years after you've started volunteering. She eventually passed from metastatic breast cancer. I'm so sorry. What was that experience like for you as her daughter?
She was sick for about 4 years, and I described that experience as standing in the center of a highway straddling the line, because half of my life was really fast paced, building a career and trying to date. I was in my 20s, and the other half of the line was this really tumultuous journey of her continually diagnosed, being in remission, relapse, diagnosed, relapse, remission. And I didn't feel like I fit in either place. I struggled with, was I enough at work? Was I enough to date people? And, also, was I enough as a daughter? And that was just a really fine line to walk. And I often joke, I got run over all the time. Because there were so many things that just were not congruent. But I will say that the greatest blessing I ever had in that was the family of support from the childhood cancer community that I've been volunteering in. What a gift to have them. They were an incredible resource for, medical issues, but more importantly, as a true support network for me. I had already had I call a vocabulary of cancer. Tim, you know what that is. It's like you just know some of the words about a Hickman report or a Broviac or whatever. Sure. And so I was grateful for that vocabulary of cancer. And, I will admit that I was a naive optimist the whole time, right? My mom's battle, like I said, was extremely up and down. And, Tim, you and I talked about this on last week's show, where she didn't always tell me how bad things were. And I'd have to find them out either through my dad or just, women's intuition about, this doesn't sound right. But I will say that the gratitude I have for anybody who supported me on that journey, having the community around me was probably the most important aspect of that cancer journey, and allowed me to heal today. That community still supports me.
That's amazing. And speaking of support, thank you all who are here tonight. Thank you all who are showing up tonight. We're here on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. Erica Campbell is our guest. It seems so weird saying guest with your name, Erica Campbell, but you are our guest. And Nancy Barrows is our guest co-host tonight. And so grateful all of you are here showing up. I just want to go to the comments briefly here. Dr. Nupi is here. Mark Kageyama is here. Nancy says, I can only imagine how hard it must be to wear so many hats, especially with the roles you were filling.
Yes.
Because every other part of your life keeps moving, like you said.
Right. Yeah.
Like the world doesn't stop for you to deal with this one big thing.
Right. And I always remember this, I feel bad for this guy. I went on a first date 3 days before my mom died. And I'll just never forget, that casual moment where you're on a date and they're like, so what does your mom and dad do? And I have to drop this bomb that I didn't want to drop. It was like ticking in my lap the whole time. And I was like, well, my mom's extremely sick. And, it was such an awkward time. And, I will say that guy did call me a couple of days after my mom passed away. And he was so kind. He was the first guy that made me laugh. He didn't know what to do or what to say, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. He said, what can I do for you? And I was, literally devastated, sleeping in my twin bed at home. And I said, you know what you can do? You can make me laugh. And he goes, okay. And he's sort of hemming and hawing. He goes, a fish walks into a bar. Damn. I was like, what? It was like the stupidest joke that made no sense. But it totally was. He was the first guy that made me laugh. And I will say that obviously he's not my soulmate and we broke up, sort of weeks later, but I'll never forget. And I always have a gracious place in my heart for him. And I understand how hard that was.
Yes. Katie Simpson in the UK is saying, hi guys, I'm watching with the sound off as it's so late here. They're 5 hours ahead over there, guys.
Wow.
But yay, I've caught the live. So thank you for being here, Katie. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Dr. Nupi's awake in the middle of the night as well.
That is dedication.
That is dedication. And Jason Freeman is here. Welcome, Jason Freeman. Erica, he is wondering, where in Minnesota are you from?
I am currently living just outside the Twin Cities in Edina, Minnesota. So come visit me. Like you said, Tim, let's go have coffee. If you're nearby, call me.
There you go. So Erica, you were diagnosed with breast cancer 4 years ago. What did you learn from your mom's journey, and did you do anything differently?
Talking about holding another ticking time bomb in your lap. After my mom passed away, I saw the incredible struggles she went through. She had so much chemotherapy and radiation and a lot of questions about her care. I did get first genetic testing. So any of you who have a history, please get genetic testing. I did not have the BRCA gene. So that was like, whew, great. But I still had this nagging feeling that someday this was coming for me, right? It's that like ticking time bomb. And so I would say what I did differently was I was a really powerful advocate for myself, meaning, they said, oh, you're not supposed to get mammograms until you're 40. I was like, that's cool. I'm starting at 30. Thank you very much. And I got continually a series of what I call scary mammograms where they'd go, we think we see something. Can you come back? There would be something there. And then, I'd get another, more invasive test. They're like, oh yeah, you're fine. Come back in a year. I was like, no, I'm going to come back in 6 months. So I was really vigilant about it. And I'll be honest, I had been thinking about what they call a prophylactic mastectomy, or no, it's basically a preventative mastectomy, because I just could not handle the fear. It was this dark cloud. I felt like that was just hanging out behind me. And many doctors said, you have just as much of a risk as anybody in the human population. Your mom was just an anomaly. Don't worry about it. And, I just didn't take no for an answer. I will tell you, when right before I was diagnosed, I had, again, that last scary mammogram. And they said, we think we see something. I was like, been there, done that. I said, when are y'all going to let me have a preventative mastectomy? And sure enough, though, this was the time I hate being right. This is the time you don't want to be right. But I did get that phone call from the doctor saying, actually, this is cancer now. And so my ability to understand breast cancer was heightened because of my mom's journey. And I just think all of the research I had done and like maybe the mental preparation, although I would say I probably was not as prepared as I would have liked to have thought I was all those years worrying about it. I regret some of that worry because no matter what, when you hear the words that you have cancer, it's an entirely different experience than the one I expected to have, because I did expect to have this. So there was a lot of expectations that went out the window. So they presented options to me. They said you could have a lumpectomy and then you could have some radiation and, maybe some chemo, or you could do a full-on mastectomy. And I'll be honest, I sat on that decision for about a hot 10 seconds because my mom had started off with a lumpectomy and some radiation and chemo. And they at the time had said, oh, only a 5% chance it'll come back. And so that's what I learned. I was like, nope, no way. Like, no offense for bluntness. Like, you can cut off my boobs. Like, we're good here. Like, my boobs have done their work, right? They were like, fun in my 20s. And then I, had babies and breastfed. Like, we're good here. So it was a really easy decision for me. And that's what I learned the most. And so, obviously I've had that mastectomy and it is preventing me from fear. Can't really see in here, but I have some really awesome fake boobs. I had reconstructive surgery, come on.
Get out to the girl.
Yeah, just keeping it real. I love these things, right? I mean, and no, I don't want to lie. It has been a, very painful and long journey, but not only do I have great breasts that don't move and they're perky and they're fun and nobody knows the difference, even in a bathing suit, but I don't have the fear. And that was the greatest weight off of my back. It was that black cloud flying around me. And that I didn't realize how heavy it was. It was like somebody slowly was taking bricks out of the backpack. And suddenly you're like, wow, life seems just a little bit better. And so, you go into the dark valley, and that was certainly the mastectomy journey. But you come out on the other side at the top of the hill. And that is what I learned on that journey.
Beautiful, truly.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you.
And you've mentioned a bit of this within some of the other answers, but what was the biggest silver lining in your mom's cancer journey for you?
It was the ability to say goodbye. And for me, that was the greatest gift. Because there was about, obviously when you have someone you love facing cancer, you have hard conversations and you're fighting for that person's health. But there became a point about 6 months before she actually passed away where we knew that where this was going. We didn't want to admit it, and you never want to give up, but we started to have different conversations. And, I remember sitting in a rocking chair in the hospital with her, and we kind of looked at each other, and it was like, I think it's time to talk about these. And it was about, I was totally single at the time. So she was like, okay, here's some marriage advice. Here's some parenting advice, and then, she even said, I will be there for your wedding. I promise you, even if just in spirit. And she was so funny. She was like, I won't be there on your wedding night. Awkward. She's like, but I'll be there for everything else. We got to talk about her funeral wishes. We got to talk about what she wanted to do with her ashes. Oh God, we had so many important conversations. I had a journal book that was for mothers and daughters, and it had those prompt questions. And so I asked every question and I documented everything. And, as you can tell, these are still really painful, raw memories because it's really hard to say goodbye to someone. And you didn't know when the finish line was coming. But man, if I knew that she was going to die on January 19th of that year, no matter what, like, this journey or, hit by a bus, car accident, I would have chosen the cancer journey every single time because I had that opportunity, and I told her how much I loved her, and she told me how much she loved me, and there was never any doubt. And actually, one of the most beautiful and powerful conversations she said was, towards the end, Erica, I'm going to most likely be unconscious. She knew a lot. She was pretty smart. And I was like, no, Mom, it'll be fine. She's like, and I want you to know that even though I can't talk back to you, I will be listening. And, at the time I was like, Mom, no, it's fine. It's fine. Well, sure enough, towards the end, the last 48 hours, she was, unconscious and on pain meds. But I would talk to her as if she could hear me. And even, we had a whole day of visitors. And so people would come by and talk to her and say goodbye. My aunt would come by, her sister, and everybody had their sort of half hour with her. And I supervised that journey. And, I would tell her, okay, next up is, Anita. And, I would just explain to her what was happening. And at the end of the day, my brother and my dad went home. And I said, okay, well, Dad and Keith are leaving. I'm going to go put on my pajamas. I'm going to go brush my teeth. And then I'm going to come sit next to you, Mom. And we had sat like a recliner, and I put pillows up. So I was like right at her hospital bed level. And, I said, I'll be right back. So I did that. I put on my pajamas, brushed my teeth, because there was no prying me out of that hospital room. And, as soon as I sat myself down on those cushions is when like the real end of her journey, and it became extremely clear what that was. And I know she heard me. I knew that she waited until everybody was gone, until I was there. And so I had this beautiful opportunity to like stroke her hand and like walk her through that last, sort of like 10 minutes of her life. And dang, am I so grateful for that gift. And it was so sad and so painful and so beautiful. So beautiful. So that is the silver lining. And it's the greatest gift I've ever had in my entire life.
Well, it's really hard to hear you tell that. It also made my heart feel really full.
She's probably with you too. My mom, by the way, she's super powerful. So I guarantee she's here with us today. Okay, and thanks, she's Mom. Like, I love that Tim and Nancy and all those people. She was cool. She was a great mom.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that, Erica.
Yeah.
All the people in the comments here are supporting you. Brian is saying, tearing up here. Thank you. I lived in fear my mom would have to bury me. Rob says, my father had a type of skin cancer growth coming out of his left ear. It looked extremely painful. He didn't want anyone near. It kept on growing. Eventually it traveled to his throat, causing him to aspirate while trying to eat. Within a few days, he stopped eating. I'm not sure exactly everything it said, but thank you for sharing, Rob, and sending you lots of
sharing that, Rob.
Love. Charlene says, such a precious opportunity to be able to do that and say what you want to those you love. Catherine says, I remember having these conversations with my dad. My heart goes out to you, Erica.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah.
Ellen says, I so get that, Erica. There's a permanence to goodbyes and gratitude for having been able to have that experience, tearing up.
Yeah.
I love this community.
I do too.
I do.
Yeah.
I love this community.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for showing up.
Thank you.
So, Erica, what was the biggest silver lining in your cancer journey?
I think there were two. Number one was trust and rebuilding trust. You kind of heard in my mom's journey that there were, some highs and lows, and I didn't really trust doctors as much. I didn't trust statistics. I didn't trust research. And then faced with my own journey at the starting line, I was like, okay, I got to learn how to trust. I have to trust these people. I have to trust physicians. I have to trust surgeons. And for me, that silver lining was just leaning into that support system just from the medical community. But then I also, I have to trust my kids, meaning I have to trust them enough to tell them the truth, right? That was my criticism of my mom. She didn't always tell me exactly what was happening. I had to trust that my friends and family would be okay. I had to trust my team at work. And these were really, it sounds simple, but after I lost my mom, like I kind of became this like control freak where I was like, I got this. I will take care of myself. I will do this myself. And so letting people in and not only trusting them, but also like receiving help and receiving support was a really powerful lesson for me. And I hadn't realized how much I had closed off myself for a really long time. Even after my mom died, people would say, how are you doing? I'd be like, I'm great. Oh, everything's great. Super. No problem. Because I didn't really want to tell them what was really happening. And so Nancy and Tim, for your show on Radiating Real, like I resonate with that. The silver lining was like, I had to lean into getting support, being super real about what was happening, authenticity, super amounts of vulnerability. And the silver lining that's TBD is I took pictures the whole time of this journey. So like a week after the surgery, actually I took pictures of my boobs before and then like every couple of months. And so the silver lining is that I actually also wrote about that journey, and I am preparing to share that with other women faced with those choices, because you can't really Google like pictures of breasts and mastectomy and like you're going to get like violated at your IT company, your IT department at work. And so I am preparing to share those in a way that is really authentic and vulnerable, and explains kind of what was the mental journey that I faced, the uphill battles there, and just some of the realness of the journey of the surgery, because it ain't easy,
And while you can Google those things and maybe find appropriate information, it's so different when it comes from someone who's been through it than just looking it up on the internet and like getting this stark, scary, information when you're hearing it from such, right? It's like right? The sky is falling when you can hear it from someone that says, yes, this is how it feels. It sucks. These were the challenges. These were the days. These were the ups and downs, but you get through it, instead of just these facts that you can pull off the internet. It's so powerful. It's such a amazing thing. I'm so glad that you were comfortable sharing your journey and doing so in such a way that people can see it and hear it.
So I will tell a kind of funny story. This is in the book that's going to be released hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months. But after I got diagnosed, I had to tell my team at work, and we had a consultant in the office. I didn't really know her at all. She'd been there maybe like 3 weeks. So I tell my team, it's very tearful. And then I go back to my desk, I sit down, and she comes into my office. She sits down and she whispers to me, I've had a mastectomy too. And I was like, okay, I'm so scared. And she's like, okay, do you want to see my boobs? And I'm like, and I'm like, this is a woman who like works. I don't know her very well at all. She's a consultant, super awkward. But I really wanted to know. She's like, I've had the reconstructive surgery. It was 10 years ago. My boobs are amazing. And I was like, I do. And so like we go into the work bathroom and she like takes off her shirt and she's like, check it out. And I was so grateful. It's funny and it's, awkward, but like the gratitude I had for that, Nancy, was because like I could be like, are you for real? So like I even like poked at him. I was like, is that like a fake? Because they looked so real. And so that talked about like, I had a little bit of more trust, right? Because these doctors were saying this stuff to me. And then she was like showing me the real deal.
Right. How many opportunities have you had to see and feel reconstructed breasts, right? And so it's something you can have done. It can be really great, right? Everybody but like that's the kind of generosity and openness and vulnerability that really, it gives me chills. Like, because that's the stuff that gets people through. That takes something off of your plate that you don't need to worry about. Like, it just, yeah.
And I am forever grateful to that woman. And so I want to do that for other women. And I can't tell you how many people, I get text messages all the time, like, a friend of my friend of a friend of yours gave me your number. I'm facing the same challenge and decision. Like, can you talk me through? I'm like, sure, I'll call you and then let me DM you my pics of my boobs. Like, I did that like 5 or 6 times where I was like, okay, I think I should write about this. So stay tuned.
Love it.
Well, thank you for being so open and honest about all of this. So I wanted to take a little detour back to earlier in the conversation. We were talking about your work with the Pinky Swear Foundation a little bit. We touched on it, but could you talk a little bit more about the foundation and what you do there a little bit?
Yeah. So Pinky Swear Foundation is core mission is to help children with cancer and their families with financial and emotional support. So what that looks like in real practice is we pay, when a child's in treatment, we'll pay their mortgage, pay their rent, give them, gift cards for gas and for groceries. And it's an incredible way to make a direct impact on the family right now. So I love, we talked about research. That's going to maybe help a family in the future. But what we do at Pinky Swear Foundation helps a family today, right now, with guarantees. Because, there's a lot of focus on the health of the child. And that is number one priority. Number one. But life goes on for parents. And I was a camp volunteer. Like, I understand that, still, life just keeps going on. And so to be able to support the parents financially, to allow them to take a breather, not worry about their finances, and then focus on the health of their child. So now we get to do that. I get to do that every day. I sign checks for families around the country. Doesn't matter where you live. You are welcome to apply to Pinky Swear Foundation. So if you know anybody that is in a struggle financially, facing a childhood cancer diagnosis, go to pinkyswear.org. And I just want to tell you quickly how we got the name, right? It's a Pinky Swear. And Pinky Swear Foundation was founded about 20 years ago by a boy named Mitch. He was 9 years old and he had a terminal bone cancer.
Hey, Erica.
Yeah.
I have somebody here that might be able to help you tell this story.
What? Ah! What?
Now, hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Oh my God!
Surprise.
Hi, Erica.
I love you so much, Steve.
I love you more. And the reason I had to come on this call is because you promised me we get together every few months and you have not brought donuts not into my house. So you and Lacey, giddy up.
Oh my God. Tim and Nancy, how did you pull that one off? Oh my gosh.
Oh, Tim and I go way back.
We go way back to Erica, when you put the post up about your 5-year anniversary at Pinky Swear. I connected with Steve.
Yeah.
Steve is the best.
And so I conspired with Steve to bring him here today.
Oh
Well, and I read him, Erica and Lacey, they send me notes all the time. And, and I said this, and here's Mamacita here. And but I get a lot of cards, I get a lot of thank yous. I've gotten all of them for 20 years, and they all mean a lot to me. But I obviously we poured our heart and soul into this because I had to fulfill the mission and the promise that I made with my son in the hospital. And it was and I got emotional listening to you and you talk about your mom. I had never heard it so in depth. And that it made me think about my dad, because I lost my dad to brain cancer. And, I had those same opportunities that you did. I digress. I'm sorry. But, Tim and I talked about you quite a bit. And I mean, I said, I am so, and I do have to correct you on one thing, never throw you under the bus, ever. But I was the one who made the final decision on hiring you.
That is true. That is
So
actually.
that needs to be in your story. I had my board of directors do all the vetting, work with everybody, and it was down to the last 3 candidates. And our chairman of the board, Bruce, I hope he's listening, but he said, Steve, Becky, and he's like a brother to me, right? And he said, you better not screw this up. But he said, it's your foundation, your promise, your family, your son. It should only be right for you to make the final decision. And we vetted her, and the first one, I said, don't even bother. I mean, you know what? She's not a candidate. And Bruce is like, oh, dear God. And the second one I met with, and we're at Redstone in Eden Prairie. It's a restaurant here. We had dinner planned every night, and which was great. Do you remember that firecracker shrimp, Erica?
Delicious. Yes, I do.
So good. And so I'm texting under the table while Becky and Erica are blah, 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 right? And I'm texting the second candidate, and I said, absolutely not. No way. I mean, because I looked at her, our second candidate, and I said, can you tell me what a gross margin is? Can you tell me how to read a financial? Well, I look at her resume. She goes to Duke. She went to William and Mary. I mean, you want to talk about top of the food chain.
I used to be an accountant, Steve. I know gross margin.
I know. And, yeah, and you know what we call accountants here, CPAs, constant pain in the. But anyway. But with that being said, I actually knew, and as many of you know, anytime you're going through a process like that, in 5 minutes. I mean, you just know. And I looked at Becky across the table, and I gave her the proverbial, yep, the wink. And I didn't say anything. I was stone-faced and, like that. And then I'm texting Bruce underneath. I said, all right, call her cell phone right now and tell her she's hired. And he goes, thank God. And he said, she's kind of thought you would pick. And that's because you were able, never did we have anybody that understood that. And, in running a 501c3 nonprofit, I didn't know anything about it when I started it almost 20 years ago is when I did start it. While Mitch was still alive, we went up to the 49th floor of the IDS tower, and I got to get rid of that. I keep getting these messages. Thank you. I'm not ignoring you people, but I can't multitask. But you know what? She's the best thing that ever happened to us. And I told Tim, I said, not only did I look at the board and say, I'm done, because at the end of the day, nobody put in more blood, sweat, and tears than me. I mean, we were the first people. We went out and started all these events. We went out and got all the donors. We went and rallied all the troops. And, we handed the platter over to Erica and just said, you know what, Godspeed. And she has done nothing but make us proud at every single turn. And I told Tim, I said, I trust her so much. I think I've only been to the office in 4 years, maybe 5 times.
Oh,
and I used to
your trust, Steve, is amazing.
I used to have an office key, and now it's like, no.
Well, Steve, you are Mitch's dad, so you get to tell. I was about to tell it, and it's not my story; it's your story.
It was my night. I will. It was my night to spend the night with Mitch in the hospital. We never left him alone. He had his diagnosis till death was 10 months. We brought him in because he had a bump on his leg, and it was kind of a unusual bump, like we had never seen. And I want to show you picture of what that little bump turned into. And you can see him on the wheelchair. Look at the size of that tumor.
Mm.
And his body was so contorted with tumors. He had over 2,000 tumors from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. And he had osteosarcoma bone cancer. So his bones were literally like Swiss cheese. And so getting back to the hospital, it was my night to spend the night with him in the hospital. Becky, we tried to provide some normalcy for our daughter, Melissa, who's now 32, married, 2 kids. But back then she was, 12 years old. And we tried to have some normalcy because we never left him alone in the hospital. Somebody always stayed at the hospital. And as I was there, I mean, I had a laptop. Back then it was probably that thick and weighed about as much as a small baby grand piano, unlike the laptops today. And I was writing a daily blog like I always did. This was before Caring Bridge. So I had our own website built. And right at the time of his death, we had 45,000 hits on that website per day, 30 to 45,000 hits. Wow. So it gained a lot of attention from people all over the world. And, we get soccer balls from European soccer teams. And we get, just the stuff was just crazy. And they'd literally bring in a flatbed cart and he'd have, PlayStation games, and he'd have, all the, those games were what, $80 a piece, I think. And I think that trip, he got like 50 games from people all over. As far as the PlayStation, which I still have, I can't get rid of it. I'm trying to get my grandkids to play it now, but, it still has the cord. They're all cordless now, I understand, but he got like 3 of those games, and those games were $300-400. And he looked at me and he goes, "Dad, why do I get all these gifts?" I said, "Buddy, we live here. Our family's here. We're lucky. I mean, we have a lot of people that love us right here." And he said, "Well, just as we're going through this whole thing," he says, "Dad, why are those kids crying in the room right next door?" And I just said, "Buddy, it's none of our business." Well, he tuned in to every word that they were saying, and they were crying because they couldn't afford Christmas. And he looked at me and he goes, "Dad, don't I have money?" And I said, "Yep, you've got money." And he said, "How much?" And I said, You've got $6,000 in cash." And he goes, "Why do people give that to me?" And I said, "Because they don't know what to do. So when they don't know what to do, they give you money." And he said, "So that's my money?" I said, "Yep, not mine. It's yours." He said, "So I can do whatever I want with that money?" I said, "Yep, whatever you want." And he said, "So when am I done with chemo?" I said, "You're done tomorrow." And he said, "So I can go to the bank and I can get that cash, and I can get the cash." And I went, "Yeah, if that's what you want to do." I said, "What do you want to do with it?" And he said, "I want to give it to other kids." And I said, "Okay." And he said, I want to give everybody money for Christmas." And I said, "Okay, if that's what you want to do, that's what we'll do." So the next morning, they filled up his tank, gave him platelets, gave him a blood transfusion. And he said, "All right, Dad, let's go." Went to the bank. Back then it was Richfield Bank and Trust, which then we live in Chanhassen, same house we've always lived in Minnesota. And he said, "Let's go to the bank." So we went to the bank. The president of the bank was a good friend of mine, still is. And he was in a wheelchair. He was in a wheelchair after 30 days because the tumors just took over his spine and all of his, his legs, everything. He couldn't walk. So, and plus that he was just too brittle. So what he did was he'd always go on 2 wheels on the wheelchair, and it would just, you want to have a heart attack? A kid with bone cancer, he would go for miles And I say that because we had just been on a cruise. We went on a couple cruises in 10 months, but he would go around the whole perimeter of the ship with his front wheels never touching. And it's like, I'd be behind him. And if I tried to, no, you're not going to do that, he'd go, Dad, get away, and he'd keep doing it, and just won the hearts of everybody. And, he still does today. He wins everybody's heart. It's a slam dunk every time. So he looked at me and he said, Dad, I want to get all the cash out. And, before we went into the president's office, well, the president of the bank is on a phone call. You can tell it's a very important phone call. It's right in the middle of a business day. And he goes, and it's, typical banker, cherry wood and mahogany. And, back then it was hunter green and brass. He goes with his wheelchair and he kicks open the door. And I'm behind him and I'm going, oh, dear God. I said, I'm so sorry for that, James. And he goes, no problem. And he said, yeah, Mr. Customer, can I call you back? And he hangs up the phone. He gets up from behind his desk. He sits in front of the desk. He crosses his legs and his arms and he goes, and how can I help you today, Mitch? And he said, I want 6 G's. I want it all in hundies. And I want some envelopes. True story. He was like a gangster. And so we go into the conference room, and he goes into the vault, and I think this is probably one of the only times in history where the bank president let him wheel right into the vault.
Wow.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And he grabs out $6,000 and he says, I need you to sign for it. So he just went, bleh, didn't even sign his name. But I mean, it wasn't very legible. But when he did sign it, that's his signature right there. And yes, I have it on my bulletin board and I stare at it every day. And so we got the $6,000 and I said, okay, now what? What are you going to do with it? And he says, well, I want to give it away to kids. He said, I want to go to the Ronald McDonald House and I want to go to, so he had his own inventory and he'd been there so long, he knew everybody and everybody knew him. We did when it was my turn, I did kind of buy dinner for the entire floor. I mean, every night I was there. I'd look at him and I'd go, buddy, what do you want for dinner tonight? He said, let's go to Mexico. Well, that meant Mexican food. So I had to get Mexican food for the whole floor. I mean, all of 5B. I mean, some nights it could be 60 people.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, I want to have a barbecue. Well, that meant ribs. So I'd get ribs and, then he'd want burgers and I'd buy burgers so, everybody knew Mitch. Actually, it was my wallet that paid for everything, but nobody cares about that. And we just had a blast. You find the sunshine in every day. So he went through his process of elimination back at the bank, and this is the long story, Erica. So, and you've heard it all at some point, but
Yep.
I want everybody to really know. And so he had his process of elimination, and he'd go, well, this person, let's give him 200. This person, let's give him 100. This person, well, it came to the family that was right next door to us that couldn't afford Christmas. And he said, we're going to give them $600. And I went, okay. And he looked at me and he goes, Dad, why don't you kick in a little extra? So I did. What everybody doesn't know is how much extra I really did put in. And there was quite a bit more, but which is great because it helps me sleep at night. So we went around that afternoon. We went back downtown. So downtown to Chanhassen. And we had these envelopes. And on the envelope, it said, and I said, well, what do you want to put on these envelopes? You got to put down who it's from. So he put down, love you, Mitch, XOXO, which is now what our orange envelope program is. And we actually took Mitchell's signature and we printed it on envelopes. So that's just something we just never have changed. And I hope we never do. So if I die next week, keep doing it, Erica. So anyways, we went around, and that was the best Christmas I've ever had in my 58 years. Was going around and handing out those envelopes. Well, the last room we went to was that family that couldn't afford Christmas. And we were able to go into everybody's rooms, and we went, kind of later in the day. So a lot of the kids had therapies, or they were out for a walk with, in a wheelchair with their parents, or down in the garden terrace, or in the cafeteria, or whatever, or in the playroom. And so most of the rooms, nobody was there. So we were able to just slip it right, either under the pillow or on the nightstand. And this family in particular, that couldn't afford Christmas, I found out later there was much more to it. It was a family of 4, and they all slept there every night. Well, they slept there every night because they had nowhere to go, and they were from out of state, and they couldn't afford anything. I mean, nothing. And that's where I reached out to some of my friends and customers, and was able to provide them with free night stay at a Hilton property right next to the hospital, which they never saw a bill on. And they probably spent 60 some nights there. And unfortunately, the child did pass away. But we were able to bless that family. And this whole family of 4 was asleep in the room. And I mean, they were out cold because they were, with chemo and all that, you're up all night and you sleep all day. I mean, that's kind of the way the pattern went for us, at least on 5B. And everybody's story is different, I understand. But we went and we brought that envelope and we set it on the table. Now, keep in mind, before I had triple bypass, I was 125 pounds heavier than I am now. So, and you're probably looking at me going, God, you're a skinny guy. You look like you can't be more than 150 pounds, right? Probably not.
Absolutely.
So big guy now, and I was bigger then. And he looks at me and he says, Dad, let's go. And we started to go outside the doorway, and the side of the wheelchair hit the metal door jamb and made a loud tinging noise. And I went, oh, crap. And Mitch went, Dad, run. And so here I am causing an earthquake on the 5th floor of the University of Minnesota Children's Hospital, barreling down the hallway. We get into the envelope, and he's laughing so hard he can't even breathe. And I look like I'm ready to die. And he looks at me and he goes, Dad, that was a blast. He said, can we do this again next year? And I said, buddy, you're not going to be here next year. I said, you're gonna be going to heaven pretty soon. We talked about it openly. It was never a topic we didn't talk about. Our faith here at the Chapokas household, we are very faith-filled people, which is something you'll find out, Tim, when I send you your book.
Yeah.
And I'll have Becky sign it because she wrote it with her dad, who just passed away in December.
Oh.
So a very special book to us now, even more so. But that tells our story. And you know what? I just looked at him and I said, buddy, you're not going to be here next year. And he said, make a pinky swear with me right now, Dad, that when I'm gone, you'll continue to do this. And I said, Daddy is really busy. I travel a lot. I work a lot. Dad, you got to pinky swear me. And he looked at me and he did one of these things. And I pinky sweared him. So one thing that anybody that knows me and knows me well knows that my word is gold.
Yeah.
I never, ever, ever go back on what I say. I do what I say and I say what I do. I was not raised that way. So those are one of the core things that I've kept with me always. And, we'll we'll tell the story, and we'll be a part of this mission for the rest of our lives. It wasn't until Erica came along that I could finally say, with antibacterial, I mean, I finally found my person.
Oh, I found you, Steve. And did you know that I discovered recently, Steve, that my mom passed away just 3 months before Mitch did? This is nearly 20 years ago. So I'm pretty sure my mom, I told you she's powerful, was in heaven being like, welcome, Mitch. Let's go do something fun together with the people on this earth. I really do believe that. I really believe that, Steve.
Well, I can't speak for your mother, but I can sure speak for Erica Campbell. How tall are you?
5'3".
Yeah, and you weigh as much as my left leg. And you know what? I would never mess with Erica Campbell. I mean, you want to talk about a powerhouse? Holy cannoli! So I've never doubted. You know, we've had our bumps, but never with us ever.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for giving my life purpose, Steve.
Well, she does thank me all the time.
I love this work. I love this job. I love this community. I love your son. I love your family. Thank you. Yeah. Steve, and I will tell a story on your behalf really quickly. You know, I know that you had COVID at one point, and didn't you buy your own headstone? Obviously, you made it through, but what did you write on your headstone, Steve?
I kept my promise. My wife doesn't like this, and she's upstairs listening, but she does not like this. I don't want my name. I don't want the date I was born and the date I died. All that's going to happen on my headstone is two pinkies crossing. I kept my promise.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's so beautiful and so powerful. And yeah, I hope people get to know Steve better, because that's true. Steve, anytime you say, "Are you keeping my son's pinky swear promise?" You bet I am.
Yeah. And I always tell her, I said, go out and make more money, give away more.
Yeah.
The power of a promise, right?
You know what?
Such a powerful promise.
Unfortunately, as long as there are children with cancer, we have a job. And my prayer when I go to bed every night is that we won't have to do this anymore.
Yeah. I always say I'd love to work myself out of a job. Yeah. I love my work, but yeah, if there was no childhood cancer, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've got more cancer than money. So we got to keep growing. We got to keep our octopus spreading.
Yep.
And what do I always say? Honesty, transparency, integrity.
Yeah.
And you know, if I get all my updates from my CEO / executive director and Lacey. I mean, I love her.
I love her too.
And our chairman of the board. You know, I don't.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. I'm so excited that you guys did this. This is like, it's hard to surprise me. I don't know how, Tim, you did that.
All I had to do is keep the secret. That was my only job.
And you did.
I don't know. I usually figure stuff out. That, Tim and Steve, impressive.
Well, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you showing up tonight. And
it was my pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wonderful to have met you and heard your son's story. It's what a generous young man who continues to have his generous heart felt after his passing for years to come.
Well, I am absolutely blown away with how big it's gotten, how fast it's grown. Well, it's been a long 20 years, but it's been a good 20 years. It really has. I mean, I don't have anything really negative to say, because, you know, the people and everybody that God's put in place along this journey has been the right person for the right time. And we've never had anybody that didn't want the absolute best for this foundation. So for that, I'm eternally grateful. And it's, we take the high road always and always will. And just keep doing, I told you earlier, Tim, we're doing God's work. We really are.
Yes.
We're in the business of blessing people, and I want it to always stay that way. And what better of an ambassador,
Yeah.
A great ambassador.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I feel honored to have your trust in keeping your son's pinky swear promise.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful name of the foundation, and it's a beautiful, beautiful legacy for Mitch. Yeah.
Strength of two fingers, right? The strength of two fingers that have created this beautiful, much longer chain. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much, Steve.
All right. I'm going to ditch out. You guys have a great night.
You too.
All right. Take care.
Bye. You as well. Oh, wonderful.
Surprise.
Sohn.
Erica Campbell.
Nancy Barrows. What?
What?
Tim's kind of the king of surprises, of like beautiful, very lovely, thoughtful surprises.
That was a beautiful, thoughtful, lovely surprise, Tim. Yeah. Wow.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Steve's amazing. Yeah. And I do love living out his son's legacy. I'll call you, if you're listening still, Steve, I'll call you later.
Okay, Nancy Barrows, you're up for the next question.
All right. Well, it's a hard act to follow, but
I know,
we've been talking all night.
And I recognize time, so I will keep my answers short here.
Yes. You take the time you need because you're helping others by sharing your story. And I know you've had people reach out to you after being diagnosed or having a close one, like a close loved one diagnosed. Do you find there's a theme to those conversations? Is there something almost everyone is worried about? And what do you typically share with them?
Yeah. I would say the thing when a person is newly diagnosed, the thing that comes up the most is feeling super alone. And typically people, when they're first diagnosed, have not known somebody else who's in their family or a friend or a loved one who's had cancer. And so it's a feeling of loneliness and a feeling of helplessness. And I would say that the advice I keep giving is A, let people in, B, find that support network that is right for you. And also my favorite one, which is never give up, never give up. And that one, it's an easy phrase. It seems like something Nike will come up with next, but never give up is really a North Star for me. And that's what I tell most people who are diagnosed. Take one baby step at a time. Yeah.
I love that. Take one baby step at a time.
Yeah, such an important reminder.
Yes. So Erica, after working for years supporting children with cancer and in remission when you were diagnosed, what did you take from them to use to support you in your personal journey with cancer?
Oh, resilience. I saw so many kids that lost their hair, lost a limb, were feeling left out at school, feeling embarrassed about their diagnosis, didn't want to have the label as being the cancer kid in their school. And watching them still thrive in the face of these like unsurmountable obstacles was amazing. And I would also say the transformative power of community. So, we talk about this summer camp experience and that feeling of loneliness. In their school, they may have been the only kid with cancer at their school. At camp, everybody was the same. And so watching them transform from being the kid on the outside to the kid feeling a sense of belonging and what that can do for a child's spirit or for any human spirit, like that is where resilience is grown. And that was what I took away is, just the power of community and what it feels like when you choose to feel a sense of belonging. And when you do, how you can thrive and really overcome some amazing things. There was one child that I witnessed literally a miracle. And I'll just tell you really quickly, she arrived at camp and doctors thought she might not live the week. They made an exception and her mom was there. I mean, it was really serious. And through the power of the week and the resilience and the one baby steps at a time, by the end of the week, she was out of her wheelchair. We found a boy to dance with her and just joy and like the human spirit is so powerful and so resilient. And, Abby defied the odds for years and, outperformed any expectations that doctors gave her. And so that is what I took away, is just the power of community and resilience. I could go on and on. I won't.
Well, people are going to have a ample time to get to know you better over the time as your co-host of this show. So it's a wonderful thing. Looking back at your journey with cancer, what surprised you most about yourself?
I think coming back to the point is, I think I was surprised at how authentic and vulnerable I would have let myself be.
Mm-hmm.
Remember I told you that when my mom was sick, I would really deflect a lot. Like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. No worries. It's fine. And then when my own journey came, I was surprised at how much I was willing to be authentic and vulnerable about the struggles I was having. And that was really freeing, right? I think it was hard to hide in my 20s. And it was like living underneath a mask. And so I learned that it was just way, way, way easier to just be myself. Messy, ugly, authentic, whatever. That was freeing, lighter, and easier.
I like to call it the ugly, snotty, unsexy parts.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yep. Those are the most real, and everybody has them.
Mm-hmm.
And Anne says, Erica, a true rock star. This entire community is so lucky to have you in your leadership. I agree with that. Yes, totally.
That is
As Megan, my daughter, is totally into the word totally right now. So I'm going to say totally. That's how she says it. Totally.
I can use the word that's no longer cool. Literally.
Yes.
That one's the now.
I literally use that one all the time. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yes. So Erica, imagine. Yeah. So Erica, imagine there was a moment, perhaps more than one, where you hit rock bottom. Are you comfortable sharing yours with us?
For sure. So Nancy, speaking of messy, ugly, and embarrassing, when you have a mastectomy, for the first 2 weeks, you have to have these tubes, drainage tubes, come out of your body, like literally out from like under your armpits. And they are filling up constantly with blood and guck. And you have to essentially change them every couple of hours for 2 weeks. It is not comfortable. Let me tell you, like, you feel like they're going to fall out. You feel like you have snakes in your body. Like, that's what it feels like 24/7. And so I was told to have these tubes in for 2 weeks, and you can like count every minute to that. And on day 13, I get a call from my doctor who says, oh, hey, so you're supposed to have your tubes out tomorrow, but we're going to give the whole staff a day off because it's early for Memorial Day. And then they're going to have an extra day on the other side. And so you're not going to have your tubes out for 5 more days. And I get it. I used to work in HR. Like, I wanted to give the staff off a lovely Memorial Day, but Nancy and Tim, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I had been counting the minutes to get these like tubes out. And, imagine you're running a marathon and you're at mile 26 and it's 26.2. And then they actually like shove the finish line further away. And I just can't even tell you like the amount of emotional, like rock bottomness that I felt in that moment. It's like, I was like, I can't go another minute with these tubes in. And I had to claw my way out mentally back to like sanity to get through the next 5 days. And so for me, it was like, I hadn't realized how much I was waiting for a finish line. And as you know, in life, there's never one. And of course I did get the tubes out 5 days later, but that was rock bottom when I just didn't realize how much I had put on others to get through my own pain. And I got through it, as you do, because that's what, when people say to people who have cancer or her parents who have children with cancer, like, how do you do it? It's like one day at a time, one baby step, one small foot in front of the other. And so that was my rock bottom moment, but it revealed so much and it provided so much grit and resilience for the rest of the journey.
can only imagine, knowing, like Tim has my comment, knowing there's an end is often what gets us through, right? And so to have that, then like you mentally prepare. I've said it a million times, like if you just tell me how long I have to do this for, I can do it. It's the like, you can't tell me how long I have to do this for, that really is soul crushing and spirit crushing. Being mindful of time, I just want to ask, is there anything else you have not had a chance to share that you feel is important to share tonight?
Well, I was going to share about the Pinky Swear Foundation, but I think we've covered that one. No, I just, please reach out to me. If any of this touches your hearts, I would love to hear from people. I would love to connect more about my own journey, my mom's journey, your journey, Pinky Swear Foundation, anything. So I am an open book and I love hearing from people. So connect with me on LinkedIn or email me, Erica Campbell at pinkyswear.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica.
Yeah. I still can't believe you got Steve Chapokis on this now. That's amazing. I have to come up with a big surprise.
The all-powerful Tim Sohn.
I know. Now I got to work on a big surprise for Tim and Nancy. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Erica. It's been great to have you on the show. And I can't wait to have you as my official co-host starting in August.
I know. And Nancy, if you ever need anything, I'm here for you. And I know you've got your own very powerful story and I want to learn more.
Thank you. My heart feels that.
All right. Thank you, Erica.
Bye, everyone.
Wow. Just amazing as always, Tim Sohn.
Wasn't that I learned so much about Erica Campbell's story tonight. Didn't you, Nancy Barrows?
Absolutely. I learned about her. I learned more about, cancer journeys in general, and just hearing about the foundation and Mitch's family and his, it's always sad to me how many people have been touched by cancer, but how somehow such a devastating disease brings people together. Fills my heart in a way that other things just can't, right? When people can relate to one another, rely on one another, and come together to support, comfort, and cheer one another, there's no greater gift.
What you said.
Yeah, that.
Exactly. Exactly. So we are looking for guests who want to be on this little show, Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, whether you're a cancer survivor or a family member or an author or a nonprofit organization like the Pinky Swear Foundation, or a medical professional, or anyone with a perspective connection on cancer or a connection on cancer. Direct message me if you're interested, or even if you think you might be interested, or if you're unsure, let's have a conversation. And even if you're not ready right now, maybe you will be eventually. Be happy to have a conversation with you. Nancy Barrows, who is our guest next week? I think I've heard of this person before.
I think so too. I feel like this is an honor to introduce this guest as next week's guest, because it is Eileen Sohn, Tim's sister.
Oh my
and the
goodness.
guest, your sister and you are going to be having a conversation on cancer. So it's going to be a powerful episode. Please don't miss it. And the guest host that will be joining you is Mark Kageyama. So
Yes.
as always, let's show up to support Eileen and each other.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Nancy Barrows, for joining me tonight as guest co-host. So great to be here with you tonight. Of course. And thank you, everyone, for showing up, whether you're here live tonight on Tuesday, June 14th, or whether you're a future person watching the show, for another episode of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. We're going to go out the same way that we came in. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.